Hi, I'm CBMF Productions, and I don't know how to start this video. I'm at a loss for words, honestly. If you've watched my channel for some time, you know that I'm not one to go watch a movie and then rant about it afterwards. I'm no Mr. Plinkett. But every few years, there comes a movie that I just need to vent about. A movie in a franchise that I actually quite enjoy. A movie that, despite not being on my most anticipated of the year list, I was still relatively looking forward to, because of the goodwill of the franchise up until this point. But now, let's talk about F9. The Fast Saga. Jesus Christ! So this movie I actually watched Thursday night, June 24th, and I'm recording this video on the 26th, Saturday night. And over the course of these couple of days, this one's just gotten worse in my mind as I let it fizzle in my brain. And it just got me more and more infuriated that I have to talk about it now. I know I'm not the first one to complain about this movie, as many other YouTubers have, but I just need to get my thoughts out and just splurge about the absurdity of this movie in its entirety. On the off chance that maybe one of the execs at Universal will see this, and see that this is not a direction that a lot of people like. So there will be spoilers, but honestly, if you haven't seen this film yet, please just watch this video instead, or any YouTube video about this film rather than just watching the movie itself. It always lets your time and get to the point faster. And if you want a theatrical experience, just spend your money elsewhere. Go watch A Quiet Place 2, Conjuring 3, In the Heights, Peter Rabbit 2, Him and His Wife's Bodyguard, or just wait for Black Widow or Snake Eyes or Space Jam or Old or Suicide Squad. Any summer movie over this one, please. Because all the films above will probably respect your intelligence 10 times more than this film does. So setting the stage for me as a Fast and Furious fan, I've enjoyed all the 9 previous films to various degrees, even Too Fast, Too Furious.
I said forget about it, cuz.
But most notably, I enjoy Fast 5, which is where a lot of people jumped onto this franchise's more action spy-centric direction. And despite none of the following films beyond Fast 5 reaching the heights of that movie in my opinion, they've all been fun in their own ways. But they have been noticeably getting worse as they've strayed farther from reality in my opinion, especially after Furious 7. But despite not hearing so good things about the film from various YouTube critics I follow and trust their opinions on, I was still going in with my own expectations of being a done fun summer blockbuster, because we've mostly been straying from them for a year at this point, with a couple of exceptions. So I decided to watch this film Thursday night at 7 p.m, the primetime showing for a film like this, and when I got there, I got my concessions and walked into nobody being there, and nobody showed up afterwards. I was the only one in my theater. 7.1 million preview night bullshit. Let the judge know that I was the only one that showed up to my theater at 7 p.m. Thursday night. This is not the audience for a Fast and Furious film. On top of the fact that the theater I went to see this film in, I work at, so I didn't have to pay for a ticket and contribute to the film's box office. Which sounds terrible in an era where theaters need more butts and seats than ever before, but for a film that spits in the mouths of this prime demographic, I'm glad I was the only one in my theater. I just wished I brought some friends together so we can just scream at the movie. But oh well. Regardless, let's just break this film piece by piece and just get into it, because I got a lot to say about it. First off, I will give out the few positives I do have for this movie. I like Tyrese's and Ludacris's chemistry in the film. They've always been fun additions to the franchise, and their banter still works here, for the most part. Minus one gag that we'll get into later. I do like the fact that since Justin Lin is returning to the franchise with this installment, he does bring back various characters from Tokyo Drift, the first film he did direct in the series. Outside of Han, various characters from Tokyo Drift appear. And since Tokyo Drift is one of my favorite installments, it's cool seeing these characters play into the plot. And for a 2.5 hour movie, due to so much going on, it does go by at a nice clip similar to Infinity War and Endgame. It doesn't drag much in the pacing department. Plus, I do like the fact that during the flashback scenes, they add this digital film grain look to it in post that makes it feel and look like some of the older entries in the series. And that's it. Now let's just get into the rest of this movie. My first big issue with the film is the plot. The driving narrative of this installment is garbage. Pure dreck. Contrivance after contrivance is how this film operates, and you can tell that Justin Lin and the rest of the Fast and Furious crew just pissed at whatever bullshit they came up with while shooting because the script is so messy and all over the place. You swear an elementary school student wrote the script. It flip-flops so much between plot points and character motivations and action scenes that it doesn't feel like a competent or complete script. And no matter how much you say, oh, it's just a dumb movie, why should we care about the plot? Because even in the other installments, the plot, like in any other film, is the bedrock to make a film work. No matter how much CGI you throw at the screen, no matter how good Charlize Theron looks with her Oliver Tree haircut, the writing is the center of it, and that's the first of many faults with this movie. The film makes the entire Fast crew seem selfish and unlikable. We started the film with Letty and Dom having their perfect life together at this barn, and then the rest of the crew show up because they need to save Kurt Russell from some force that's overtaking his plane. So they go to the jungle, and then Letty and Dom just leave their kid and a hole presumably in this barn for the rest of the film until the last scene. On top of the whole plot involving Dom's lost brother John Cena, which is possibly the most soap opera movie of this entire franchise thus far, and that's saying a lot. And the explanation for why he's a bad guy and working with Charlize is that Dom blamed him for the the death of his father on the racetrack over 30 years ago, and because Dom heard a theory by the two younger versions of Los and Santos while working on cars during his sentence for some reason, he immediately assumes that John Cena killed his dad, and immediately after he gets out, challenges him to a street race, and rather than just talk it out with his brother, he gets banished from the town and never heard from or spoken of for 30 years. This is the major issue with the film because it makes Dom look like an arrogant prick than ever before. On top of just abandoning his son at the barn by himself to go on his mission, the fact that the entire reasoning behind him being banished is because of a backhanded comment by Cheech and Chong, that he decides to put his own pieces together in his head and it's like, of course, he must have killed our father because he wanted my famous and favorite Toretto brother, and not the fact that maybe another race car just crashed down the road and that's how he died. And it's not like the film criticizes him for his past actions. It's not like Dom has this guilt complex about this, and it's not like he acts differently to finding John Cena and tracking him down. He just fights him like every other thug in any other movie. He has no remorse or regret for screwing up his brother's life, and when he realizes he's wrong, he doesn't even talk it out with John Cena. He just knows somehow because he goes back into a fever dream and realizes that maybe my brother didn't set up a plot against me, maybe it was just an accident after all. And it's not like he has much of a reaction to be wrong about his brother for 30 years, and never getting him a chance to speak on the matter. Despite his moral code all being about family, they just kind of head nod each other and just recreate the ending of the first film. It makes Dom more and more of an asshole in retrospect. And that's another issue with the film. The movie screws up the timeline and ruins past movies just because they want to bring characters back. For example, Han. The explanation for how they bring him back is so lazy and contrived that I actually groaned in the theater. The writers put no effort into the script, and just say, oh, that car wreck that he was in, it was just a symbolization by Mr. Nobody. You ruined the ending of Tokyo Drift, and even with the context of the movie, he barely makes an impact. He's just another guy that's part of the team because they needed to fill out the roster with The Rock and Statham being absent this time around, and Paul Walker passing away. He's just here for being a familiar face. I had the exact same issue with Harry and Kingsman Golden Circle. If you're gonna bring a character back, do something with them that means more to the plot than just, we like the actor, we want him back. It makes this franchise have even less stakes, and you know at this point they can bring anybody back from the dead. I will bet money that they will bring back Gal Gadot in the next installment, and even probably bring Paul Walker back into the fold at some point within the next couple movies, because at this point, the filmmakers are more shameless than both TV shows combined. The other major issue that this creates is that the whole Justice for Han motif that this franchise is heading towards. Previously, I was all up for it. I wanted to see how Statham would have to pay for killing Han, but now since we know that not only was he not dead the entire time, he wasn't even injured in the process. That takes all the wind out of the sails now. So when I see a post-credit scene teasing this, I don't care, because at this point, it makes Statham trying to kill Han indistinguishable from all the other characters that have tried to kill each other in this franchise beforehand, and have become friends the next day. Look how easily Dom and his brother resolved their 30-year-long hatred for each other. I will still buy if Han somehow survived the accident but was injured in the wreck, and had to be in remission for years a la Bruce Wayne in The Dark Knight Rises, so there would still be something there that would leave an impact, but since everybody walked from this unscathed, why should I care about this point? And that's another thing that dilutes this movie. There's no weight to any of the action scenes in this one, because the film straight up acknowledges how stupid it is and wants you to go along with it, but since we're no longer in reality with this one, to the point that makes Fast 8 and Hobbs and Shaw feel grounded, why should you be invested in any of the action scenes? Nobody gets injured or has a scratch on them, and oh yeah, I forgot, everybody somehow mastered their own branch of martial arts and can fight 20 guys without getting tired out. Especially Vin Diesel, who can just throw armored guys around like balloon people, and can pull chains attached to concrete rooftops and just pull a roof down, and can fall 40 feet into the water and only wake up with a bruise that goes away after 5 minutes. And mind you, I can have fun with stupid action movies, like Crank or Hardcore Henry for example, that are just insane stunts and action for 90 minutes straight. But when the film tries to hammer in this whole brother dynamic and dedicates at least 45 minutes of the runtime to these flashback scenes, it makes the film feel less fun because it tries so hard to have their cake and eat it too. Because Vin Diesel wants these family plotlines to be taken seriously, but if you think about them for more than 5 seconds, the storylines are so flimsy and just rushed, and when the film makes Tyrese and Ludacris joke about their invisibility, it just makes me more frustrated because it shows that the filmmakers just don't care at this point. The film has no respect for its audience because the film can literally come up with any random bullshit, and they know they'll make hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office. So why put together a competent story and likable characters when you can make F9? I don't know why it's so hard to make a fun story for these films. This installment literally feels like a soap opera with action scenes on the side, and the action is so dull this time around because there's no tension, because you know everyone will make it out alive and unscathed. Not to mention the villains are weak as well and they don't add any threat to them. John Cena is fine in the film acting wise, but his character is so one note and a blank slate that I don't even remember his name. And if it wasn't for the actor that plays him, I wouldn't remember him at all. Because the movie doesn't want to fully commit to him being a bad guy for this movie, because he's an international superstar, or at least was. This is an issue that I've been seeing since Gaston entered the franchise, in not wanting to have villains that actually stay villains, and just turn to the light side almost instantly, no matter how long they've been on the dark side. And it once again takes all the threat from these villains because it makes them feel constrained and they can't do a whole lot of damage because they want them to be part of the family for the next movie. Hell, I wouldn't be shocked if Charlize teams up with the family in the next movie to take down Hercules or some shit. And as they make Roadblock with this movie, it tries so hard to go full-blown insane that since they've not gone to space, there's no logical way to go up from here. This franchise has become such a punchline now that it's just a cartoon. I don't care about the characters because they're not that interesting beyond their banter and jokes. They try to have emotional bits like with Mia and John Cena, but it's so in the background, on top of there being no younger version of Mia in the flashback scenes, so I honestly kept forgetting that they were brother and sister. I don't care about the plot or the action or whatever these films have in the pipeline because this film killed the franchise for me. It showed that they have no gas left in the tank, and are just coming up with whatever jokes people make about this franchise on Twitter, so they can just stay relevant, but also wanting to have the level of character investment and emotional stakes as the MCU or Mission Impossible franchises. But because they can't commit to either side of being an insane action movie through and through, or being a more grounded, more focused family drama, it makes the film feel like a total mess. And honestly, I don't plan on checking out the next 2 final Fast and Furious films of the mainline franchise, because why should I? What will they do next apart from crossing over with Jurassic World or time travel that they could do next? And a big part of the reason why I feel this way is because there's no way that this franchise could come up with a better ending than Fast 5 and Furious 7 didn't already give us. Those feel like they fit as the canonical endings to the series. And this is no MCU to where you can have your endgame for the OG Avengers, but still have room for so many other new and untapped characters in the universe. I doubt that anybody's excited for the female-led spin-off or the Dom Solo movie. Aren't these films already about him enough? Or whatever they come up with in the pot, because these characters don't have the same impact or intrigue as Steve Rogers or Tony Stark or Thor. With the exception of maybe checking out A Hobbs and Shaw 2, I don't care about the series anymore, and I'll probably just consider Furious 7 to be the ending of the franchise, because that ends the series on a high note, and that film's become quite a double-edged sword for this franchise. Because it's obvious that Vin Diesel and the rest of the Fast crew want to capture that same level of emotional ties with the audience that Furious 7 did, without realizing that it worked because it grounded an otherwise ridiculous movie with Paul Walker's death. And with that anchor gone, these films don't feel like fun or exciting or real films anymore. They feel like SNL skits. And they don't care about putting together a story that's worthy of being released in theaters. So why should I waste any more time with a franchise that's so obviously going to keep hitting the nods until it crashes and burns? I see the flames right now and I'm jumping out of this car. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why F9 broke me.